Hello and welcome to a new episode of Morgana Radio, where I, your host Morgana Ray, interview the world's most fascinating thought leaders on money, love, and magic. And I am sharing with you today one of my favorite people in the whole world, and you are so going to want to hear what she has to say. I'm really just going to jump ahead, and first I'm going to tell you what today's topic is about, and then I'm going to tell you about my guest. If you have ever suffered the pain of someone who really needs your work, and you know you can help them, and they say no, this is the show you want to attend, because my friend Sharla Jacobs is going to teach you how to turn that I can't afford it into an enthusiastic yes, which is going to make you and your clients so happy. So my friend Sharla Jacobs has taught over 50,000 coaches and holistic practitioners from all over the world how to attract more clients. And honestly, the first time I met her back in, I think, 2010 or 11, at this slumber party in Santa Cruz, I met all these millionaires, all these like super successful coaches who told me that they started at zero, at nothing, and learned everything that they know from Sharla. And that was before I took any of their classes. But I have to say, that really impressed me. So, and by the way, Sharla and her husband, Jesse, they weren't even selling anything. It was more of a just get to know each other hippie party up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. So Sharla and her brilliant husband, Jesse Corin, have become famous for helping even the least confident entrepreneurs have their very first $10,000 month. In fact, many of today's rising transformational leaders, because I've met them, had their first six-figure year while attending Jesse and Sharla's program. They have a book called The Art of Attracting Clients. And this has become an international hit that has inspired people all over the world to enroll high-paying clients while staying connected with their heart, which is, I think, the biggest deal of why I love them. They're kind of sleaze-free sellers, and Sharla is going to be teaching you some secrets for that. Also, Jesse and Sharla love giving back. They have given over $12 million in scholarships to their events. They've contributed over $140,000 to causes that they believe in, including sponsoring an African village so children in Kenya can get an education, have clean water and organic food. And they were both highly dedicated to creating a world where everyone thrives. So let's bring you to my friend Sharla and her topic, how to turn the I can't afford it into an enthusiastic yes. And today you'll discover how Sharla and Jesse started from scratch to making millions. The most important thing that you must cultivate to stop devaluing yourself and feel great about charging your full rate. The 3 magic questions that you must ask to turn half of the people who say I can't afford it into fully committed clients. Because it's not just about cash, it's about commitment. 5 steps to gracefully talk about the money concern without being pushy. And your potential client will really appreciate how much you care about them. And finally, 4 mindset shifts that you must make in order to stop feeling queasy when asking a client to commit. So welcome, Sharla. Can we just start off with, it's really funny for me to see how successful you and Jesse are. You're kind of like a gold mine, and at the same time, the most humble, caring, generous people that I know in our industry. And I just get such a kick out of your story, because you did not start out this way at all. How did you become this guru of heart selling?
Oh, thank you. It's so funny to hear you describe us that way, because it's when things just become your life. And I often call our business an accidental seven-figure business because it was never in my plans. I know Jesse wanted to lead workshops, but it was never in my plans to be doing the work that we're doing, to have made a difference like we've made. And I mean, while I certainly feel blessed, I certainly didn't start out like this. About 15 years ago, I started my coaching and acupuncture practice. I had just completed my coaching certification and also gotten my acupuncture license here in California. And it took me about 6 weeks to figure out that I knew nothing about sales and marketing. I mean, even having been a bartender in my previous life and working in restaurants from the time I was 16 until I was 30, I just really had no idea. I was always like the lowest check average, and they had contests. I just sucked at all that stuff. So it was pretty painful, and I got my office, I got some business cards, I got flyers, I told everybody I knew, I did everything that I knew how to do, but when it came down to it, I didn't have enough clients to pay the bills. As a matter of fact, I had about $1,800 in my checking, I made about $1,800 in my, after about 6 weeks a month, and I remember just doing everything I knew how to do and not going well. And I remember one day going to the grocery store, or the health food store, and standing there in the produce department with an avocado, like an organic avocado on one hand, a conventional avocado on the other hand. And just, it seemed strange to have such a moment like this, but it was like, wow, the difference of $1 was a really big deal because I had less than $200 in my checking account and rent was due in a few days. And I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I just started thinking I'm going to have to give up everything that's important to me, and including eating healthy. And I was really, really fortunate because shortly after that moment, I met a coach. And he was somebody who was he coached people who are new in business. And he promised me that if I did his 90-day coaching program, that I would triple my income. Now, I told you I was making about $1,800 a month, and that wasn't enough to pay the bills. But I thought, okay, if I can triple my income within 90 days, that's over $5,000 a month. That's at least a pretty good start. And so, even though I didn't have the money to hire him, I actually went to Jesse, and he was just my boyfriend at the time. We weren't married, and I said, Jesse, I really want to do this program, but it's $600 a month. And I said, I would really love it if you would loan me the money. And he hemmed and hawed, and I asked him one question. I said, do you believe in me? And fortunately, he said yes. And I hired this coach. And this coach had promised me, if you remember, he said the homework, right? So what was the homework? My homework, in order to guarantee I would triple my income, was to have 20 conversations for business 5 days a week. So my homework was to have 100 sales conversations every week. And basically, like, this is just being out in the world, talking to people. So I'm stuttering because it's like, that's the way it felt at the moment. I didn't have a choice, really. It was like, okay, go back to getting a job or figure this out. So I went for it. I fully went for it. It was scary. I was nervous. I was uncomfortable. But I really decided to go for it because it seemed like there was no other way at the time. There are other ways, and I'll say something about that.
But also, because you had invested so much, you couldn't afford to blow it off and not do the work. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So I was willing. I was willing. I was like, okay, universe, take me to the next step. So I went to every networking event that I could go to. I followed up with people. I kept tracking. In all honesty, I had about 12 conversations a day on average. So about 60 conversations a week, meaning I stand up at a table, talk to 7 people, that counted as 7. So, but I got a lot of practice in talking with people. And the first month and a half, the first 2 months, it was really bad. I mean, I'm kind of embarrassed about some of the conversations that I had. Jesse would actually listen to me and overhear my conversations and cringe at some of what he heard. But then something pretty magical happened. He said that this show's also about magic. So I really do think this was a magical moment in my life, one of those turning point moments that I'll never forget. And that was that I had this divine download. I was obsessed with the 5 elements of Chinese medicine. I would look at a person and think, well, what element are they? I would think about what was going on in my own body, what element was going on. So of course, if that was my obsession and my filter for which I viewed the world, of course, I started looking at these conversations that I was having through the lens of the 5 elements. And it was a really magical discovery, because I discovered that when all 5 elements were present, the conversation usually went well and often resulted in a client or a referral. And if even one of the elements was missing, the conversation didn't go well, and it felt awkward, or I felt weird. And this gave me, I brought this system to Jesse, and he helped me really flesh it out. And I started using this in my conversations. And what happened in that last 30 days was pretty amazing. I did indeed triple my practice. That last 90 days was over $5,000, and that was just the beginning. And I started being able to use this system to look at the 5 elements and go, okay, if a conversation didn't go well, I could debrief and say which one was missing. And Jesse actually followed suit shortly after. He at the time had a job that he hated, and he was working at a nonprofit, and he hated his job, and he wanted to get out, and he had started his coaching training, and he started using the system, and he knew that he had, he said, okay, if I get 8 clients, I'm going to quit my job. Well, he got 5, and he quit his job, and never looked back. And then we joined forces, and he actually knew that he had mastered heart selling, and we got 16 new clients in 1 month. And we have never looked back. At some point, I stopped practicing acupuncture because this business and my, I guess it's just my dharma to be on stage and to be, working with more people than just one at a time. But we joined forces, and we have never looked back, and it's just gotten better and better every year. And, basically just a few friends started asking us what we were doing, and we started teaching this 5 elements of heart selling system, one step after the next. Now we have several programs and have taught, thousands and thousands of clients how to attract more clients and do that in a way that's in alignment with their heart-centered values.
Yeah, I love your classes. And you and I both know so many coaches, very, very successful, well-known coaches who teach their own enrollment systems. And yours is really the only original system that I've encountered that you aren't going to get anywhere else.
Yeah, it's the one thing. It's interesting because there are a lot of templates out there, and we have a lot of templates because they're really important. And yet, their templates are one thing, but then there's the energy of the conversation, and how aligned are you energetically, and how do you actually embody all 5 of the elements when you're having a conversation? I'll say a little bit about the 5 elements a little later when we talk about the gift that I have to offer, but it's a really powerful system, and it's easy to remember and easy to think, okay, did I use the fire element or did I use the water element? And it gives you a really simple guide to be able to use, and it's a proven system. Talk about a magical download. That was the thing. So I'm excited to share about that with you.
Oh, excellent, excellent. I'm curious, why do you think so many coaches and healers and holistic entrepreneurs come to your company, Thrive?
I think that, well, one thing is that for the first few years of our business, now we've been doing this over 11 years now, and for the first few years of our business, everything was strictly referrals. So this is kind of a funny thing, I tell some internet marketers this, and they kind of balk at this idea, but we actually had our first $1 million year when we only had 3,000 people on our email list, and that was because people had a great experience at our Client Attraction Summit, and then they shared about it with people, and our business just really grew very organically. And when we first started this, there were, I could count them on 2 hands, actually more like 6 people that were teaching coaches or holistic practitioners specifically. I don't think anybody was actually doing teaching holistic practitioners. It was just those were our friends, those are the people that we wanted to be in community with, and so those are the people and that's who we were, so we started teaching it. Now there are, tons and tons of people that are specifically working with coaches, specifically working with holistic practitioners and healers. But it didn't start out that way, and it's been 11 plus years. I think we have a lot of things that are kind of like our secret sauce. There are things that we do in our programs that nobody does because it's not actually as profitable for the company. But for us, we're obsessed with our clients getting results. And so we're willing to do things that might take a little more time or might mean a little more investment in our clients, but we've just seen them get results over and over again. So I would say it's probably because of the results that people see.
I'll back that up. One of the reasons I'm such a passionate fan of you and why you and Jesse are really your company is the company that I send my friends to who are starting out, because I don't want to coach beginners. I don't have the container for that kind of thing. So I need a really safe place. And what I observed, which really blew me away in your company, is, some people pop right away and they start making tons of money right away, and some people don't.
Right.
And I don't really see this elsewhere, but you kind of hold and support and incubate people in your community for as long as it takes. And I remember when I was taking Jesse's speaker class back in 2012, there was one guy who just was so frustrated, and he just wasn't getting that breakthrough in his business, and he just wasn't getting that breakthrough. And then maybe a year later, he suddenly exploded, and he was totally making the money and getting the respect, but he was able to stay in your community and be supported long enough so that he could have the time necessary to work out his inner stuff and work out his niche, which is not a quick and easy thing for everybody. And that really impresses me. That's why I feel that you create a really safe place for people to get the maximum success available to them.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we recognize that some people are tortoises and some people are hares, and a lot of people who are tortoises think they're hares. And so any business coach is going to have people that are going to get great success right away. They come in with all kinds of levels of experience, so we recognize that. And I certainly don't feel like we can take credit for your success or anybody else's success. I think we provide the space and the templates and the structure and the support and the community. But I will say, I think there is some real magic that happens at Thrive that, I think a lot of it is really the divine working through us, and particularly through Jesse with the type of inner game coaching that he does. We call breakthrough coaching. So, some people take a little longer. And I mean, we do have a lifetime program. I don't usually talk about that up front, but for those that need a little more time or just want to stay in the community, we've got, over 100 people now in our lifetime program. They just keep coming back to programs because they love the community. They feel really supported there.
And you create just, I think, a culture from top down that really enables people to thrive. So please get us started with how to turn that terrifying, dreaded, I can't afford it conversation into a full-bodied yes commitment.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I think for a lot of coaches and holistic practitioners, they fear that the money conversation, deep fear about it, and it stems from something that happened when you were a child where you felt rejected, and I remember that time, that moment that happened for me. We all have our inner game work to do on that, and I'm not saying that ever goes away, that we call those gremlins, nobody can afford your services, or you're not good enough, or people don't want what you have, or, whatever it is that the voices say to you. I'm not saying that those ever go away completely, but I have discovered that you can have a breakthrough in your mindset to the point where you just aren't as afraid, or those voices aren't as loud, or you can even, I lived in a Zen monastery as a monk for a period of time while I was doing acupuncture school. You didn't know that, Morgana? Yeah. It's funny. I had this weird life. I was a bartender at one point, and I was also a monk. I mean, who does that? Anyways, and we talked about burning through karma, and I think that there are places where we can burn through that and it no longer bothers us. Like, for the most part, I don't have that concern when I'm having a conversation with a potential client. Like, if somebody comes up to me and wants to talk to me, I stand there and I can cultivate compassion and love, and my goal in the conversation is to support the person I'm talking with to have what they want. And so, I talked about you mentioned I was going to talk about one of the most important things to cultivate, and that is to have a certain amount of love and respect for people, so that your goal in the conversation is all about getting them what they want. It's not about you. It's not about them signing up with you. And it takes the pressure off of it being about you. And it puts the focus on your potential client, which is exactly where your focus needs to be when you're having these kinds of conversations, meaning everything that leads up to the money part of the conversation and including the money conversation. I think so many coaches and holistic practitioners just turn into a different person when the money part comes up because of those fears and insecurities. And if you can cultivate that love and respect and compassion for your potential client and put the focus completely on them and helping them get what they want and actually coaching them to get what they want, you're going to be in a lot better of a position in these conversations. It's going to feel better for everybody. It's not going to feel awkward, and everybody's going to walk away feeling great about the conversation.
I've taken classes with other coaches on the whole selling conversation, and they use different language than you do, which is kind of dehumanizing. They really trash talk the people who don't sign up, and one of the first things that I learned from you and Jesse is you have your own vocabulary around sales that is really humanistic and compassionate, which I think just speaks to the authenticity of what you're saying here.
Thank you. Yeah, you'll never hear me say the word prospect except in a conversation like this. Like, we don't use that word. We use potential client. You don't close sales. You help people commit to themselves, and it takes a little longer to say it, but it feels better inside. So it's a lot easier to be aligned when using language that isn't objectifying when talking about sales. And our process is called heart selling, like your heart, not hard selling. And so, yeah, we've changed all the language, and we even use it internally. I know sometimes, right now we're working with a marketing firm to help put together a new marketing campaign, and every time I see the word upsell, I actually edit it to say upgrade. So, we just do stuff like that because it feels better. And I know that when we're using language internally, that has got to come out in your way of being. And, it's like if I think I'm trying to close someone, I can't actually be open in that conversation. So if I don't even use that kind of language when I'm learning
right.
and thinking about how it's going and debriefing and discovering, it just makes it all more aligned.
Yeah, none of us want to be closed.
No, who wants to be closed?
But we want to commit to ourselves. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what are your 3 magic questions that you ask to turn those I can't afford it responses into that commitment to self?
That's a great question. And actually, before I do that, I want to use the 5 steps and the 5 elements to show you what this conversation can look like for you. And this is just a brief introduction. I'm committed to giving you value that you can walk away with and use right away. And of course, if you're resonating with me and you want to spend more time with me, I'll share with you how you can get more and how you can come, enjoy more time with us in our community. But for now, I've got a limited amount of time, so I'm going to give you a kind of a quick version here. So, and I'm going to introduce the 5 elements to you, and this is really just an introduction. At our Client Attraction Summit, we go deeply into the 5 elements. We do some really powerful experiential exercises, so you get these in your bones. All 5 elements in your bones, and then you're able to walk out and have the energy of all 5 elements in your conversations with your potential clients. So, but this is an introduction. So we'll start with the first step, which is the fire element. And the fire element is all about connection. Of course, I don't have time to go into the theory of Chinese medicine right now and why this is, but just know that the fire element is the organ is the heart and the heart protector. And it's all about connection. So whenever I'm meeting someone new, I don't walk around in the world thinking is somebody a potential client, is somebody a potential client. They come to me. I feel like I hold an energy, and I go to places where my people are, and I know where my people are. So I don't have to go out and looking for people and wondering. So I don't show up with an agenda in any conversation when I'm networking or I'm somewhere at an event. I just go to connect with people. And so that's the first step is can you start with just a simple heart connection. I'll give you a little tip. Those early days when I was first learning how to build my own practice, and I had to go out and go to all those networking events and go to everywhere that I could go to meet potential clients, I would walk into the Chamber of Commerce events, and I swore I was the youngest person there. I've always looked pretty young. I don't know, I hope I'm still looking young. My 41st birthday was just the other day. Anyways, I would go into those things, and I swear I would be so nervous that I thought I was going to throw up sometimes. So I would go into the bathroom stall, and because I knew about acupuncture and the meridians, I would put my hands on my heart, and I would run a little energy between my heart. I'd make this like figure 8, because your heart meridian and your heart protector meridian are on your hand, and they actually connect from your heart. So I would do this little energy run thing and just soothe myself so I could actually be in my heart as I went out to go meet people. And that made a huge difference for me. So the first step or the first element you've got to use is the fire element, which is to connect and make sure that you're connecting without agenda right away.
Yeah. And if you're listening to the audio of this interview, maybe on iTunes, if you go to morganaradio.com, this has also been recorded on video, and you can actually see what Sharla is talking about visually, so you can do it yourself. Okay, great. That's number one. What's number two?
Yeah, so this takes us to the second element, which is the earth element. And without this element, people are not even going to want to talk with you. We've all been to events where somebody approaches us and it's obvious they want to get something from us. And it feels awful, right? So the earth element is about service. Can you show up to serve? So first I connect, then I show up to serve. I'm really wondering, how can I serve the person I'm talking with? I walk around like I'm a contribution machine, and I am constantly looking for how I can contribute to other people. Who can I connect with them with? What problems can I solve for them? I'm searching for things like, what are the projects they're working on that they're most excited about, or what are the challenges that they're having? And so I'm really wondering, what are they looking for? What are they here for? What do they come to this event for? Or even if I'm on the phone with a follow-up, so what is that? What are they looking for? So that's like a question you can hold in your mind. What are you looking for? Or, what are you looking for next? And really asking yourself, how can I serve this person? So if you show up in the fire element to connect first, heart connection, no agenda. Next, you're showing up and really wondering how you can serve, finding out what they're looking for, whether it's the biggest challenge they're having in their business and their relationships and their health. Who can you connect them with? It might be you. When you start to find out how you can serve people, you're going to actually discover that many people can use what you have to offer. And then you move into, it's a discovery conversation, right? And again, I don't have time to go into the whole template and all this, but just
You'll let us know how to get the rest of the info,
yeah.
right? Okay, great.
Yeah, this is about the energy of the conversation right now. And then the next step, and this is particularly interesting, I'm going to kind of fast forward to the part where we get to the money part of the conversation. Because, you might be having a conversation with someone, you've connected with them, you're showing up in service, you find out that they have a challenge that you can help them solve, a problem you can help them solve, or a project they're working on that you could support them in, and it seems like it's a good match, and you're having this wonderful discovery conversation, and then they ask you, how much do you charge? Like they're leaning in, right? We actually have a distinction called the leanometer. Are they leaning in or are they leaning away? You need to pay attention to, are they leaning in or are they leaning away? So they're leaning in, and you get to the money part of the conversation, and they say, wow, I'd love to work with you, but I can't afford it. Now, for many coaches and holistic practitioners, that's a devastating answer, right? They don't know what to do. They just simply walk away and, give somebody their business card and hope they call. And so one thing that you need to know is that if you've ever noticed, if you've ever been in that conversation when someone says they can't afford it, and Morgana, since you teach all about, relationship with money, people have fucked up conversations about money, right? So when someone says I can't afford it, like they want something, but they say I can't afford it, you will actually see their energy shrink. You will see their shoulders go down and their head go down, and you will see them get smaller. And so what I want to invite you to do now is to use the third step or the third element, which is the metal element. And that is about acknowledgement. And, I imagine that earlier in the conversation, they told you what they wanted. They probably even revealed something vulnerable about themselves if they're talking about a challenge. And so you can acknowledge a few different things. You could acknowledge their way of being. I see you as someone who has so much courage, or thank you. You shared vulnerably earlier about how you went through this, and I am really blown away by who you are and who you've become. You want to share an authentic acknowledgement. This is not a technique. If it feels like a technique, it will feel sleazy. This has got to be an authentic acknowledgement where you look in the other person's eyes and you really see the divinity in them. And so you can acknowledge something they said. Like, I hear that money is a concern, and I really see you as, or you said this earlier in the conversation, but some way to really acknowledge them so they feel seen and gotten. And after you acknowledge them, you will notice that their energy brightens, their spirit gets bigger. You will see it, and they often will lean in. Now, I wouldn't ask, I'm going to give you the first magic question because we're moving into the next element, which is all about curiosity. This is a water element. And honestly, if you don't have the water element in your system, using it, in your body, using it with people, you're probably losing more than half of the people who would be ideal clients for you. They're saying no instead of yes. The water element is an extraordinarily important element to cultivate in yourself. So the water element is about be curious. Talk about like going under the surface, right? Like the surface of the ocean is really pretty, but if you've ever been snorkeling or scuba diving, there's so much more going on under there. And the same is with human beings. We are such a superficial society. We keep things at surface level. We are, we don't really bring the depth in our conversations, and unless you're in those kinds of communities that are extremely conscious. But most of the time when you're out in the world, people are not very revealing, and they keep things at surface value. So this is where we start. Step 4, or the fourth element, is the water element, which is about being curious. And this is where we want to go under the surface. Now, I want to give you one of the first magic questions, and this is a really important one, because if you are going to dive a little more deeply below the surface, you need some permission to go there, right? So the first magic question is, may I ask you a question about that? Like, they've said that they really want to work with you, but money is an issue, or they can't afford it. You've acknowledged them, and you've talked about the money in your acknowledgement, and now you're saying, may I ask you a question about that? And this really just gives you permission. If you don't have consent or you don't have an invitation, it's really difficult to have the rest of the conversation, especially when you're saying, hey, because here's this funny thing. I have this little notebook right here, and this is kind of what people do. It's like, okay, they really want something, but money's in the way.
Yeah.
Money's in the way. And now you can't actually have a conversation with them because there's this thing called money in the way. But may I ask you a question about that? If they have yes, you actually get to put the money to the side and now have a conversation with them. And so this brings us to magic question number 2, which is, if it wasn't for the money, would you want to move forward with this? Now that really does say, okay, let's put the money to the side for a moment. We're going to set that aside, and we're going to talk about what you want. So let's just put money aside a little bit. And this is a really, really powerful water element curious question, because they will say either, yes, absolutely, I would move forward with this. In which case, that they really do perceive, it's not necessarily the truth, but they really do perceive that money is an issue. And I say perceive because it happened to me enough times in the early days of my coaching and acupuncture career where somebody said they couldn't afford to work with me, and then I saw them like a month later and they had just come back from Hawaii. So, people really spend money on what they value and what really is important to them and what their priorities are. So we put the money to the side, and it'll either be yes, absolutely, When it's yes, absolutely, that can be a time to, you might go into, well, if, if, what would you need to get out of it? This is magic question number 3. What would you need to get out of this to make it worthwhile for you? And they'll actually tell you what they want. This is where we say that hard selling, like really the whole system of hard selling, is about having a potential client practically talk themselves into working with you if it's a good match. They should be doing most of the talking, not you. You should be asking powerful coaching type questions that enliven them and that invite them to lean in and share more about themselves while they're simultaneously talking themselves into working with you if it's a good match. So, so you ask, well, if you were to move forward with this, what would you need to get out of it to make it worthwhile for you? And it's still, the money's still aside, but it's about them diving in and looking for the value that they would need to get. So I love this question because it really does have people start to look at what they really truly want. And so that one response is the yes. Another response might be no. Well, that's probably the thing that you're most afraid of hearing, right? Is no, I wouldn't move forward with this if it wasn't for the money. Most people are not that forthcoming. Even if the answer is no, they often won't tell you. But if they do, you can actually, if you're unattached, there's a saying about being committed but unattached. If you're unattached, like you're committed to them getting what they want in their life, if that's working with you, fantastic. But you're unattached to the outcome, and you just really want to support them. So if they say no, you could actually say something like, well, okay, so I hear that you wouldn't move forward with this if money wasn't an issue. Can I ask you a question? I'm not trying to get a yes. I'm not trying to talk you into a yes. I'm just absolutely curious because it could really support me. I'm curious what is it that, you like, what would make it a yes, or why are you saying no? Like, you actually want to gather that information because people will tell you, and they'll be honest with you. A third response you might get is like a hem and haw, right? Like, oh, I'm not sure. And then we don't have time to get into the concern, like I need to think about it or talk with my partner or spouse, or, time is an issue. There are all kinds of concerns. Jesse has this saying that they're like alligators and you've got to deal with wrestle one alligator at a time. So, but we're talking specifically about the money concern. And, if they hem and haw, again, that question of what would you need to get out of this to make it worthwhile for you, that's where they will start to share. And then you move into the fifth element, or the fifth step, which is the wood element. And here's a mistake that a lot of coaches and holistic practitioners make. They are almost there. They're like 98% of the way there with a potential client, and they hand them a business card, and they just assume that if they need their services, they'll call them. And as a matter of fact, I have a story I want to share about this element, and it's a woman named Dr. Abiola Oladoke, and that's her real name. She's from Nigeria. She's been living in the United States for many years, but she actually comes from Nigerian royalty, believe it or not. And when she first came to the Client Attraction Summit, she was doing pretty well in her practice, better than many for just starting. She was making about $7,000 a month. But she would go and she would do her networking. She wasn't afraid of all of that. Everybody's got their elements out of balance. She wasn't afraid of networking. She'd go out and talk to people. She was curious with people. She would find out what's going on with them. She would, give them value in the conversations and show up and serve them. And people were interested. And she would hand them her business card and hope that they called. And guess how many people called? I mean, enough, but not what she wanted. And so she learned this wood element. And which is give them a choice. The wood element is give them a choice. It's a yes or no choice. This is not assumptive selling like, would you like to come in Tuesday or Thursday, when they haven't even told you they want to work with you yet. This is give them a choice, or yes or no question. So when Abiola just started asking this one question in the first week after the Client Attraction Summit, she made $15,000. She had been making $7,000 a month. She made $15,000 in new sales in that first week, just from asking a wood element question. I'll give you two that you can use. Two most important yes or no questions you can ask. Would you like to follow up, or would you like to get started, depending on where you are in the conversation? And this really gives people the opportunity to say yes or no. And unless you ask that question, the people get busy, they forget. And that really is where it's like where the rubber meets the road, you know, is that yes or no question. And I want you to ask it for them, not for you. I want you to ask it because you want them to have what they want in their life. You want to help them make a commitment to themselves. Like, I want you to take the focus off yourself and put it over there on them. And I'll tell you, your life will be a lot happier when you put your focus on other people in this way for this type of thing. Of course, do your self-care, take care of yourself, get what you want, do the things you want, live the life you love. But when you're having a conversation with a potential client, the focus should be on them and what they want. And so that wood element question really helps them to really take a look at if they want to say yes or no to themselves.
Love that. The worst thing that can happen is this person will come away with more clarity.
Yeah.
Even the question, what would need to happen to make this worthwhile for you, could actually tell you that this is not the right client for you, that what they need is not what you can deliver. And boy, you just dodged a bullet, both of you.
Absolutely. Because nobody wants a client that's not a right match.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, Jesse's a big fan of Byron Katie, and Byron Katie always says that, if somebody says no, you've been spared. So, fine,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you attract the right people. So, what are the free goodies that you have for us?
I've got many. I've got many, actually, and I'll tell you about, I've kind of lumped them into two things. The first gift that I have for you is a series of short and entertaining and educational videos called the 5 Keys to Attract Clients Without Struggle. And in these videos, we'll talk briefly about the 5 elements, but there are actually several other keys that you must have in place in order to be somebody who's very attractive to potential clients. I know for some of you who are listening, your problem is more around where do you find potential clients? Well, there are some things that you need to do in the way you talk about what you do that will shift the way that people will respond to you. There are some things that you can do to position yourself better so that people listen to you differently and that you feel more empowered and confident when you're talking with potential clients. So, we talk about what do you do. We talk about some of the biggest gremlins, those chattering, that's a term that, Morgana, you're also a CTI trained coach, I believe, and that's a term we learned in coaching school from Rick Tamlin's book, the Taming Your Gremlin.
Yeah.
Great. So, but it's a term for the voices in your head that tell you things like people can't afford it, you're not good enough, you're not ready. So we talk about gremlins, and I promise you'll laugh out loud at some of these videos, and you'll get a lot of value from them. So that's my first gift, and then my second gift is that I've mentioned the Client Attraction Summit a few times, and this live event is a live event that thousands and thousands of people from all over the world have attended that have come out feeling completely different about their business. We actually go in depth into the 8 keys to attract clients without struggle with experiential exercises. It's a workshop. This is not a lecture where you sit in seminar. It's very community oriented, very interactive. You're going to be learning things and practicing them and getting them in your bones in a really, really safe environment where we're going to do both inner game work and we're going to give you templates. So the intention of the Client Attraction Summit is to give you the skills and confidence, like give you tools and confidence to be able to attract more clients immediately out the gate. And if you go to our website at thrive-academy.com, you'll find that the Client Attraction Summit is $997. And because you're meeting me through our dear friend Morgana, who is also one of our graduates and a partner and friend and colleague in all kinds of ways, I have a gift for you, and that is the opportunity to apply for a full scholarship to attend the 3-day live event, the Client Attraction Summit. Once you opt in to get the videos, you can find out all the information about the summit. I will tell you that we do ask for a $100 no-show deposit. We give you a check back at the door. And there's also an opportunity to do an upgrade and get a bunch more value before you come to the event right away. So you can take a look at that. And I guess that link is on at Morgana Radio, right?
MorganaRadio.com. And yes, I've been to the Client Attraction Summit multiple times because I ain't going to recommend anything that I haven't seen. And it's so worth it wherever you are on the planet. If you are stuck, this will give you not only information, but even more important, transformation and a community, which we desperately need to move forward. Buckminster Fuller says that environment is stronger than willpower, and Sharla and Jesse have created an environment where you can be very successful while still honoring your values and helping people at the same time.
Thank you. Well, thanks for that endorsement. And as I know that this video and radio show is evergreen, and right now we're doing a video contest, and we've got 77 success stories from clients who are sharing about the value that they've gotten from Thrive and what a difference it's made in their lives, and it would be our honor and our pleasure and our delight to make a difference with you who are listening right now, to help you to learn heart selling, to have a formula, a system that feels good to you, that you can embody, that works for you, that you're in alignment with, and that you don't have to think that much about, and resonates with you. And so we'd love to meet you in person. And please, when you come to the summit, please come up and say hello and let me know that we met here at Morgana Radio.
Great. So yeah, go get the videos and learn more and get your application for a free ticket to the in-person Client Attraction Summit, all of it for free, and watch the video and learn more about Sharla and Jesse, all at morganaradio.com. Thank you so much, Sharla. I love you.
My pleasure. I love you too. Thanks for having me.
Mwah.
Well, bye, everybody.
Bye.